All right, everybody, we are back. Hopefully, this is working.
Can you hear me?
Well, the live video is waiting to start. So, all right, now we're live. All right. Hello, everybody on the radio. If you do not know, this is Corey Rosen with the Story Podcast, and we've been trying to get our audio working for the past century, and hopefully now it's been working. Yep, now it's working. Everybody should be able to follow this. All right.
Yay.
Yay. Cool. Hopefully people will file into this. So I'm going to just reintroduce you and everything. We're just going to start over from scratch. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board. That's right. All right, so with me today, I have a guest, Robin Chambers. Originally a child of the 60s, born in Southern California, Robin Chambers now resides around Lancaster, PA. But as a youth, in a time and a place that cherished liberation, Robin developed a zeal for activity celebrating her creative spirit and letting the inside out. Though she engaged in expressive writing daily and has fashioned and sold many works of art, Robin has made her living from acting and her true passion, music, since she was 18 years old. If pressed to define her career, she would say she is a violinist, singer, and songwriter. Robin has been. I gotta relax and calm down. I'm stressed, man.
Breath.
Robin has been a founding member of a number of bands, such as Modern Icons, Lavacave. My phone is that your phone going off? As well, sorry. No, that scared the life out of me because that's my morning alarm, and so me and Nathan kind of talked about this like a day ago. Like, I get so triggered whenever I hear like the first note of that alarm because it's like.
Yeah.
Like having an out-of-body experience trying to re-wake up, but I'm already awake.
Bringing yourself back.
Yeah, right. All right, well, anyway, Robin has been a founding member of a number of bands, such as the Modern Icons, Lavacave, as well as working as a session musician, recording on a variety of projects, including albums, motion picture soundtracks, and commercials. She has performed in countless clubs, from corner taverns to CBGBs.
CBGBs.
What are those?
CBGBs is a pretty famous club in New York City where a lot of people played.
I thought that was an acronym.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah.
I guess it is, but it's also the World Cafe Live and Lancaster's own Chameleon, as well as many festivals and in the streets of New York City, New Orleans, San Francisco, and Paris, just to name a few. Now that I've said that for the second time, we're going to ask you, how are you again?
I am delighted to be here, Corey. This is going to be fun.
This has already been fun. Okay, so the first question I had asked you is, what was it like growing up in the 60s, and how from there did you get the inspiration or the wanting, the need to do music?
I loved growing up in the 60s in Southern California. It really it gave me a very free spirit. My family was very free and creative. I had an artistic grandma and aunt, and my aunt had a convertible car. We would go down Coast Highway number 1 and listen to these great tunes of the 60s, and I was a pretty shy girl and felt as though I had a lot to say, even though I didn't know how to speak it. So music felt like a great way to get the inside out.
You were talking about inspirations when the audio wasn't working, and you had mentioned the Beatles and how much you wanted to be a Beatle. Right?
Yes. I would lay on the living room floor, and I had their albums that had the booklets in them, the wild booklets, and would be listening to their music. This was when I was like 6, and following along with the lyrics and singing along with my little heart engaged, and so wanted to be a Beatle. To me, at 6 years old, I didn't understand what the Beatles were. I thought it was like a generic term for these musical people with long hair
really?
and free spirit. And I knew I wanted to be a Beatle too, but being a girl, I didn't know if girls were allowed to be a Beatle. So that's kind of the weird way I got engaged with that.
That's interesting. I've had so many misconceptions where I've taken like a term that means one specific thing and just broadened it to mean other completely different things. That's actually kind of funny. So we had talked about a little bit of your what inspired you to get into your into your specific instrument, which is now violin, right? And you had talked about orchestras.
Yeah, in third grade, I think they still do this. They take the whole school into the auditorium and you get to watch the orchestra play. And they also test your ears and see if you can tell what note is higher and whatnot. And I apparently had pretty sharp ears, and they said, "Oh, you would be able to play violin." And watching them play on stage, it looked wonderful. And so even though my family was not very affluent, they right away took me to buy an inexpensive violin at that point. And I was so honored by that. It was the biggest thing that anybody had ever bought me. And I remember just... Absolutely. Back to the drawing
Sorry, I was just making sure that we're still
on.
Yeah, we are still on.
Okay. I looked at that violin and just like had a spiritual minute with it. Like, my parents believed in me enough to buy me this thing, and I am going to do right by them and buy this wonderful instrument here that has so much potential within it. And of course, right away it sounds like crap, but I had this in my mind that I wanted to sound like a gypsy violinist and like with a passion and play with it. And I just remember being up in my room and trying to give it my all. And anyway, that's how I got into violin.
That's good. So what? Okay. So you were a child and you wanted to speak, but your voice didn't work. So you went to music.
Mm-hmm.
How is that still the case now?
It is. I've become better with my words, like through writing. And also I feel more comfortable talking. I think one way I developed comfort speaking was through acting, actually, when you take on somebody else's role. I had a job as an actor for like 37 years in the same job, playing different roles in these theme feasts, and that made me more comfortable with speaking. So I have that option now, but to me, I feel as though music is the purest form of my expression in the best music. I mean, there's a lot of music that you can just play and kind of do-de-do, go through the chords and not step on anybody too much. But then there's a kind of music that is holy and that you just open up your whole soul. And that's when I feel I can express. Part of it is personal expression, but then you open even more and it's almost universal expression.
It's so, the diversity or the amount of emotions you can put through music and the way you can express yourself through music, it's so much more sometimes than words. And it lends itself to much more feeling sometimes than words. I could say I love this, but you can show your love through. You're one of the most expressive violinist players I've ever seen.
Oh, thank you.
Like truly, I feel like a lot of violinists are more stand stilly, sit stilly, and, or the orchestra type musicians. But every time I see you perform, you're always dancing around. You're moving yourself in almost seemingly impossible ways for a violinist. And it reminds me, there's this violinist who's also a ballet dancer, and she'll play and do ballet at the same time.
I think I've seen her.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that. But with the passion you have, it really inspires me, because you'll keep going until all your strings are like the
bow hairs.
The bow hairs are gone, and you'll just use the stick and be fine with it. And I'm sure you've had a time where you've broken a string and you've still continued. Probably. Yeah, so it's wild to me. As a person who complains when his pedal stops working.
Well, I think it's almost like your instrument is secondary to your expression. I feel as though you can make music. If you have the music in you that wants to come out, you can make music with your zipper. You can make music with a book, just flipping the pages or anything. And I think this is part of my personal expression, is struggling with my limitations, the limitations of the moment. In art, I might work with something. I like working with crépage, and they're hard sometimes to work with. They don't blend right. They're kind of a rough-hewn kind of thing, but I like the struggle with that to create what I want with something that isn't that easy. And so like with music, or when I'm in my own studio, and I don't play many instruments. I play violin pretty well, and I can play viola, a little bit of cello, and mandolin, because they're all, I think, tuned in fifths. They lay under my hands. Other instruments I might want to hear, I don't know how to play them, but I just sort of have at them. I'm limited, but then my parts express my limitations. And I don't know, I guess I like the challenge of working with that. So when my strings break or my horsehair flies off, you play with the stick. You just express as much as you can with what you have to express with.
I like that, because the instrument because it's the vessel through which you communicate. But you are the communicator, so you can use the instrument in whatever way you have to in order to get it across. That's
you use it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So going back to growing up, you started your own band, or did you join a band?
The first band I was in, I had been in high school, and my plan was to move back to California. I went to high school at Penn Manor in Millersville here in Pennsylvania. I was going to, as soon as I graduated, head out to California, live there for a year, and go to college for free. At that time, they had that system. My dad was a physics teacher over at Millersville, and they really wanted me to do at least 1 year at Millersville first before I left. And that was kind of a magical year. I graduated high school in 78, so 78, 79, I was at Millersville. In that year, I started jamming with some people, actually off campus. There was a guy, an older guy. I was 17 at the time, and he was probably in his 30s, but he lived a little off campus and would be jamming on the porch, and Tom Coolidge was his name, and I started jamming with him, and then he brought friends over, and I started meeting this whole group of people that were a good deal older than I was, and through them I met Diane Sontag and Randy Zimmerman, and they had been playing together in a band and invited me in to play with them. I'm just started out. I had been playing just classical music in high school, and Tom Coolidge was the one who was trying to get me to just be off book and just jam, starting off with just long notes and then getting a little more complicated from there. And so I joined Diane and Randy really half-baked in that way, and we started the band Gypsy Blue. And right away, we were playing 3 to 5 nights a week. And then I stopped going to college and moved into Lancaster in a little apartment for $85 a month, and playing 3 to 5 nights a week, where I was making roughly what people are making now back in '79. I was 18 at the time. And so, yeah, Gypsy Blue was my first band. And because it was so often we would play, I grew up fast doing that. I bought a van, even though I didn't know how to drive. Diane and Randy would drive us to gigs, and it was fast growing up.
Sure. So how long did that last for?
That was only a couple years. During that time, I met Steve Chambers. Actually, that same year in college, I met him at a party, and he ended up being the man I got married to. So he would come to my Gypsy Blue gigs, and when that band broke up, he and I got together, and we moved out to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and started a little duo there. And basically, we would just play in a little cafe, Pasquale's, off the square in Santa Fe. I guess it was 2 or 3 days a week, but it was like 8 hours a day. We would just sit in this little perch and play, and it got us to build a repertoire very quickly. He played guitar, and we both sang in that band. And through doing that little gig, a lot of interesting people would come through Santa Fe. Shirley MacLaine, Larry Hagman, Sam Shepard, Jessica Lang. But they would also have film festivals. And I guess the head of the film festival saw us playing in this cafe and asked us to play for a special event for this film festival. And so it was through that weird little cafe gig that we ended up playing this lavish brunch gig where all the stars for the film festival was music in the movies. And we ended up playing for, like, some of the musicians were Robbie Robertson of the band. Benny Goodman was still alive then. He was there. Philip Glass. So that was kind of an interesting experience to have from just playing in a cafe.
So is that where your playing in movie soundtracks comes from?
Actually not. When I returned back to Lancaster, I befriended Mary Haverstick, who I was friends with actually in high school. I hadn't really kept up with her in the meantime, but she was into filmmaking, and her partner, Michelle Mercure, who is a musician, did a lot of the music for these films, and so we would collaborate for some of the music for Mary's films.
That's cool. What are the films you have worked on? Where can they be found?
I guess you can find some of them on Netflix, and right now, Shades of Black is one of the films. I forget, this was so long ago, I didn't think to refresh my memory on the names of the films, but I actually sang for one in Lancaster County 2020 was the film that she made. It was futuristic. At that point, it was a futuristic thing.
I was wondering. That's how accurately did they depict it?
Well, it was a little extreme, but it was pretty on point too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it just about how this beautiful, bucolic farmland has gotten taken over by, just industry and people building homes all over our beautiful farmland here. It really got into the song I did was for Dutch Wonderworld, or Amish Wonderworld, or anyway. It was more about how the tourism looking at the Amish just got so twisted and weird. But I think the tourism now, we didn't guess back then, has really turned into more being about the arts. I love how there's been such a renaissance in Lancaster, I think largely because of Chameleon, actually.
Really?
Yeah, Rich Ruoff's Chameleon, making this a destination for a lot of world-class acts to come through.
I've not really heard much of the Chameleon. I've in regard to like world-class acts, I think of AMT, American Music Theater.
Oh, yeah. I guess the Chameleon would be for more the youth, not like bands of the way past coming and doing big fancy shows. This is more like Soundgarden and the Pixies and rock acts.
Okay. Yeah, I've never. Is the Chameleon still around?
It finally closed. Rich had sold it off. I can't remember which year it was, and it really changed at that point. But I really credit Chameleon for helping me tremendously as a musician in this area, because when Steve and I came back to Lancaster from Santa Fe, New Mexico, we started a band called Modern Icons, which was a trio with Steve and myself, and at that point, our bass player, Mike Shank. And we were doing some pretty crazy music for a folk trio. We were once introduced at the Chameleon as Peter, Paul, and Mary on mescaline. It was kind of psychedelic, postmodern folk.
That's cool. There's a lot of I've noticed Lancaster is a spot for a lot of diversification of genres, which is really interesting to see. I've only been certain places that I've just done your standard folk country, your run of the mill stuff. But Lancaster, you'll hear there's so much prog rock, and prog rock already has like a diverse. What is prog rock? Everything can be prog rock on some level. And then
do progress.
Yeah, it's just so right. And there's so much diversity within like the folk scene in Lancaster, which was really surprising with me because I didn't realize you could take folk to such an extent before coming here.
I just have to say, I think that Modern Icons had some effect of the way some of the freedom the folk scene took. Like, we kind of busted through with absurd music and almost a strange stage presence. There was one song, I would hold a TV that was playing while I was singing, and it related to the songs, and I don't know, just weird stuff we would do. And it would be easy for people to shrug off some weird the folk trio doing stuff like that. But Rich really saw, there was an intensity, creativity, and passion in what we did. And he took this little, he wasn't having folk music at Chameleon. It was rock and big things. And he would bring us in and have us open for really great world-class acts. And it really gave us the validity that even we didn't think we would have. So that was, I will always be thankful to Rich Ruoff for that.
That's interesting. So how'd you get connected with Rich?
We would just play out, and I'd go to Chameleon to see various acts too. So being in the music scene, people knew who I was, and I knew who he was, and it was great when he approached me. I couldn't believe it.
That's interesting. So you probably felt how I felt when I first came into the music scene around like a year ago at this point. So one of my friends had brought me into Tellus one night, and that was the first time I've ever been like in the music scene in Lancaster, at least. And I came up, and Bjorn was running the open mic there at the time.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah, and so it was Bjorn, you, and Woody, and Henry, and all these like insanely talented musicians coming up, and I'm like, I just know how to hit chords on the piano. That's all I know. And people will say, "Oh, you can do so much more," but it's truly what I do. I'm not trained classically on piano at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all of that is more like self-taught or just what I think will sound good at a time. And sometimes it sounds good, sometimes it's jazz.
Yep.
So I had, and Cody was there too. I'm Cody Kilburn. And so I was scared to approach people because there was this air of exclusivity around you guys.
Oh, we try not to do that because
I know that now.
Because it's so much fun when there are new people to kind of turn on to that, the vibe of what's going on.
I definitely realize that now, but it was just the case that, or at least Woody, Henry, and Bjorn, and were you in General Semantics as well?
No, I wasn't.
Well, it just had to be. Well, you play with Bjorn all the time anyway, right?
We have a duo.
Yeah.
And we used to be in a band called Wayfarer Experiment.
Yeah, so I feel because that was the case that you guys were all like, there was General Semantics, and then there was you and Bjorn. I feel like that was just how it happened anyway. It wasn't the case that it was, hey, only us can play. It was more of just like, well, we already know all the songs anyway, so we're gonna play along anyway. And granted, there was, you shouldn't, in my opinion, you really shouldn't have two bass players playing, so that would get muddy real
like,
quickly.
Where is the core of this thing?
Right.
Where are we going?
Can't really have two drummers, can't really have, well, you can have two guitarists, but,
Drums and percussion can be really compelling.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, so when I came in, I was like, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know how to approach these people. And so it was really, I
Look
guess
how
that's
far you've come.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, right. I'm sitting here talking to you. Totally unafraid. So I guess is that kind of similar to how you felt almost coming into these, world-class acts? Feeling somewhat.
We were very lucky as modern icons to play some nice places. We played the Fells Point Fun Fest down in Baltimore for like thousands of people.
Oh, wow.
And same up, there was a big State College Arts Fest that was the same thing in the streets. Also, we used to play in the streets of New York City, just in the streets, like in Greenwich Village and Soho. And so there was a feeling of just, we're going to be weird, we're going to be intense, and you're going to just sit there and take it. Like,
okay, so there was like a drive and determination almost.
Yes.
Like a force that we are meant to be here almost.
There was a great time. I mean, I always loved playing in the streets of New York City, but there was one special time where it was when we were with Mike Shank and Steve and myself, and the crowd had really built. We were just on the sidewalk. They had built out into the streets, and then the cops were coming like, what's going on? And the people were starting to turn on the cops like, there are people out robbing other people and doing drugs in the alleys. What are you giving these people are playing music a hard time? And so they kind of chilled and just kind of tried to tap them like out of the street more into the sidewalk. And then I don't know if you know who Howard Cosell is.
Mm-mm.
He was a very famous sports broadcaster. And everybody knew him at the time. And he came walking up with his wife, and they were just like sitting there getting into our music. And then there was a wino who had been hanging out and drinking and just kind of moving around with us. And he started dancing with Howard Cosell's wife there on the sidewalk. And Howard Cosell just had his iconic smile watching the whole thing. And it was just such a magical moment. But
I bet that would never, ever happen today, at least.
I don't know. Well, in Manhattan, I think everything has gotten to be more like Disney World or something. Like it's not as real and as gutsy.
More corporate.
Yeah, and more touristy. There it was just the real people of the neighborhood coming out. With a guy who was friends with David Byrne invited us back to his apartment to have pasta and talk about music and art. And I don't know if that would happen these days. I don't know, maybe in Brooklyn, or I don't know what the new Brooklyn is. The cool place keeps moving. Is ephemeral.
Yeah, there's so many cool places in New York City. I do remember one time that there's like the floating island or whatever it's called, or it's like it literally looks like a bunch of golf tees out in the harbor almost.
Oh.
And there they had this like nine squares with like bells on them, so you stepped on it would make a sound.
Oh, sweet.
And being the composer that I am, I was like, I wonder what could I do with this. And so I started messing around and playing around, and slowly this group just kind of like comes around me, and now I'm like, oh shoot, I've got an audience now.
People are drawn to music. I mean, man, I think maybe it's what could save the world.
Well, yeah, because music is a universal language. Everyone's gonna, well, to a certain extent. But yeah, I definitely do think music can unify groups of people more than anything else, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, you can make orchestras. There have been orchestras made of two countries that have been foes of one another, and there they are in the same orchestra making incredible music together. Just so many ways that music has been used as a peacemaking. Even just, being in a club and you have all different kinds of people with all different kinds of lives and horrible things that have happened to them that day, and then some, with great things that happen. And then the beat starts going and they're all moving to the same beat. And it's like they all dive into this universal pool together and can be moved in the same way and slough off all the divisiveness.
Yeah, it's I've been watching a lot of Marvel recently. I've been watching Luke Cage. It's a superhero show, and a large staple of that is this club in Harlem that it's a gang club, but all the amount of musicians that come through, and that it's a place where it's kind of like Switzerland almost in some aspect, where if enemies come together, they kind of do their gang business.
Okay.
But it's the music that keeps them all together, because they're talking about the music, and then they relate back to themselves, and it's really interesting because I feel like that's probably what happened a lot in like the Chicago areas, and the New York mob town areas. I feel like that's very kin. Granted, they were they hated each other, but they would come together peacefully around music.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a magical thing we play with.
So you had talked about going to New York City, New Orleans, or well, you didn't talk about it. You had said you had been to these places. I'm curious as to what like drove you to those places. What made you go, I want to go to New York City to play music, or I wanted to go to New Orleans to play on the streets. Was there anything that just pulled you there, or was that just a personal drive of I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna make music and I'm gonna just have the time of my life?
Well, there were different things drawing me to different places. In New York City, our bass player was actually apprenticing with a violin maker up in New York City. He was living in Queens, and he was jamming with all these jazz cats and living a great life up there. And so he would invite us up, and we would stay at his apartment, and then he knew the streets to go to jam. We even jammed in the subways with him. So it was nice having that connection to draw us into New York. And just, it was fun feeling like we were in the middle of something so profound. I mean, I love coming. I don't know that I would want to live there for a long time. I mean, for some people, it's great. For me, I need to chill back where I can get the dirt under my feet. But it's great getting the shot of that feeling. New Orleans, I had always wanted to go to New Orleans. I had studied about it. I have listened to the music of New Orleans. And then Bjorn had moved there and lived there and made connections down there and played. And it just made me even more want to get down there.
So that was more of a recent travel.
This was when I was... for my birthday there. I went there for my birthday when I turned 59. And my daughter came with me. I was going to go like for the first time to do a trip all by myself. I used to go as a kid, even 11 years old, take the Greyhound out to California. So I was used to traveling on my own. Well, my grandparents would be on the other end.
Oh, yeah.
Like I'd have to do layovers and switch buses, which was a little dicey, like in Las Vegas. But I did it. So I was used to traveling on my own, but always somebody would be there on the other end to catch me. But I kind of wanted to travel all by myself to New Orleans. But my daughter loves New Orleans, and she said, Mom, this first time you go, I want to go with you. And I'm really glad she did. But this is one thing where being the age I am now and the technology that has advanced during my time in music has really helped me in that I was able to reach out and friend a number of people in New Orleans before going out there. Like I would just, there would be some people who were already friends of mine that knew other people in New Orleans. And so I would just start friending people that I had several friends with. And so I had a bunch of people who were I'd ask them questions on Facebook, and they informed me good places to go. And I actually got a gig through doing that. I actually found out where to go for open mics. So it was nice for the first time going down there to be able to gig and to jam with people. And
that's really smart. It's really smart.
I love this weird thing of being able to network. And so like I've networked with a lot of like famous people that I've known of and kind of wanted to have some kind of personal connection with. And now it's fun to see them like liking my writing or something on Facebook.
That is certainly wild. To have like, because we have, it's kind of been a theme on the show. It's talking about networking and how almost integrally important it is to being a musician and to really step out of your comfort, because I'm sure that took a lot of nerve to go out and reach out to some of those people.
I think part of it is being my age. Like, I don't care anymore if it seems uncouth or whatever. It's like, man, I only have this many years left, and I don't want to get to the end of them and think, I should have done that. I'm just like,
I'm just gonna try it. Just gonna do it. The worst they can do is say no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good attitude to have for sure. So you went down there and you had a time of your life.
I really did. There was on the night before my birthday is Halloween.
Oh, okay.
And so I went around with my daughter. Lots of tequila was had. The final place we ended up was with this great funk band, and we were all dressed up in our Halloween attire and grooving on the music. And the woman singer who led this band, she pointed to me and she said, you need to be up here. And the band, like, I don't know why. She didn't know I was a musician or anything. I didn't have my violin or anything. The band grabbed me and pulled me onto stage. And I was just like singing along with the band for that time. But yeah, anyway, had a wonderful time. The next morning was a little rough.
Well, right. Sure.
But that night made it all worth it.
So, how long did you stay in New Orleans for?
A week.
A week? That must have been an action-packed week.
Yeah, it was. Did a lot of walking.
Yeah, I've never been, but I've always wanted to go. I've heard a little bit from Bjorn. I'm trying to think of what the question was. I had it and then it went away. Regardless, so you've been in New Orleans. You've also been to Paris. I've heard.
Yeah. This was back in '89. Or is that right? Yeah, '89. My husband and I were thinking about having kids, and we decided we were going to do like a last hurrah kind of tour of Europe. And we spent 5 weeks traveling through Europe, and Paris was one of the stops. And we brought our instruments. He brought his guitar, and I had my violin. And we played in Paris, we played on the left bank. And that was probably, we played other cities in Europe, but that was the best response we had of any city. And so we were playing there. I was doing this kind of wild gypsy thing. And this very fancy man in a tux and a woman in a beautiful long gown came up to us and were really into it. And we stopped and he said, I am the leader of an orchestra at a club, and I would like to bring you in and feature you at this club in Paris.
Insane.
But the only thing was that was like the following weekend, and we were going to be off in Vienna by then.
Oh,
and
no.
so I did. And this is, I have certain regrets.
Is that one of them?
That is one of the big regrets. I really wish that would have been so much fun.
There's some points where I'd say, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna take this opportunity.
Yeah, and when '89, I was 28 at the time. It's taken me till now to realize, you just gotta throw away the itinerary sometimes and just go with the natural flow.
That's something I've learned at a very early age, is that your schedule is never going to work out the way you think it is. It's never going to work out. So why not just have the most fun you can?
Yeah.
And not necessarily deal with the consequences later, but like you said, Vienna's always going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But this opportunity that you got was never going to happen again, probably.
It's true.
And it was a miracle that it happened in the first place.
Absolutely.
So it's so sad sometimes when
But the same trip, like the place we flew out from was Lisbon, and we met this sweet couple. Like we hadn't booked any hotels or anything. We were just like walking through the streets holding our instruments, and this guy says, young people. This was a while ago. Come here. And he had seen our instruments, and he and his wife had a place, and they offered us a room based on the fact that we were musicians, and every day we would play a little music just for them. And it just, having your instruments along when you travel, whether you're, on an actual like tour, it just opens up so many magical things. Like when I was down in Mexico. This was back when I had just turned 20, and we were in a campground in the Yucatan, and I had my violin there, and this guy who ran the campground had a guitar. It was really beat up. It was held together by Band-Aids in some places. And he didn't speak any English, and I spoke very broken Spanish, but we got to play music together in a way that just brought everybody in the campground around and shared that glorious moment together. This is one thing in the future I want to do. I love travel and I love music, and I want to combine the two much more in my years to come.
That's one of the regrets I have. I went on a road trip in November to all these different cities, and I wanted to bring my dad's like travel guitar. It's like a really small travel guitar. But my friend was just, no, we don't need it. And I'm like, but you don't understand. I want to play on Broadway in Nashville, just to say I did. And I played it on the streets of Chicago, and because like you said, you never know what's gonna happen. Somebody can walk up to you, and I'm not the best at piano, but maybe they need a piano that night, and if I'm gonna be there, I might as well have some fun. And those are probably the best connections you could ever make. So you
can touch a perfect stranger in a profound way through music, and anywhere in the world. Right.
Yeah. So I'm definitely gonna make sure that I at least bring something on my next trip. I don't care what they say. I'm gonna bring it, and I'm gonna play it.
Always take your axe.
Always take. Yeah. That's it.
The soul box.
The soul box. So we had. So now that we're kind of, well, I guess we kind of went back in time a little bit, but we're gonna jump back forward in time.
That's what I like to do. Just like bounce all around.
It's fun.
Relative.
That's right. Everything is relative. So we, being your age, and still doing music, what is it like to, because you have so many commitments in your life. You have your marriage, and we could talk about that, and we can have your kids, and we can also talk about that. But being at your age where you are growing older and older, what are some of the challenges that you're having as you start to grow older?
Well, let me take care of two of those things. The wonderful thing about being my age is I've already had my kids. I was, playing on the Chameleon stage while I was pregnant with twins, and now those twins are 28, and my daughter is going to be 31 next month, and I love that they are off having wonderful lives themselves, and I love reconnecting with them, but they don't need me in their daily life anymore. As far as the marriage goes, that is not an issue anymore. When Steve and I were playing music together, it was something very important to both of us that we shared and could have experiences like going to the Yucatan and traveling and doing that and having these wonderful exuberant gigs at Chameleon in New York. And even when we had kids, we'd get the babysitter, and it would be like going on a date that we got to share this something really important. But being a musical performer has never been as important to Steve as it was to me. And he decided to break up Modern Icons. That band had been together for, I believe, 18 years. And which anyone would say, yeah, that's long enough for a band. And in retrospect, I realized it was long. I was really stuck in a pattern and wasn't growing so much as a musician being in that band. But when he disengaged from the music, there was no way I was going to disengage from the music. And I kept on. And it caused us to draw apart. And about 2.5 years ago, we made it more official. We separated. So the marriage is no longer an issue for me at this age. So in a way, I'm more liberated than I ever have been before. I have all the chops that I have evolved into by this time. I have a tremendous network where people are calling me to play gigs as opposed to me begging for gigs. I have a lot of the world that I feel comfortable going into. There are people who have followed me all through these years, and they say that I am stronger now than I've ever been. So right now, I'm not feeling any of the limitations of my age, except for the obvious, vanity. I look at myself. Now everybody, more technology, everybody has the cameras built into their phones. Everybody takes pictures and videos. And I'm looking at this face all scrunched in on a violin. And actually playing the violin has distorted my body.
Really?
Yeah, it made this jaw grow longer, and there are all kinds of contortions about me through the instrument. So time has slammed me a little bit in that way, but I guess when I was a younger musician, guys can be so weird. These guys would just come up to me, and I was 18. I had long hair and playing violin, and they're like, well, I don't know about how you sound, but I love the way you move. And just, I don't know, obviously real sleazy stuff. Now, when I'm 61, that challenge is falling away some. Not to say I don't get skeezy people coming up still, or even on the internet saying, I don't know how whatever. But But as I get older, that's going to be less and less an issue, that it's more about the music and not about the vessel.
Has that been a struggle? So you say that has been a struggle for you because did you always pride yourself in your beauty as well, or?
No, I never thought of myself as beautiful at all, ever. And now I look back to myself when I was younger and I thought, oh, honey, why didn't you realize it? I always felt very self-conscious about my looks. And I've even written things about it because I just need to get it out. I just work, like, one nice thing about music is that in the best of music, you just surrender all your ego. You don't think about how you look. You don't think about how you're contorting or moving or anything. You just surrender to a universal flow. And so I'm getting a little better about that now.
So you talked about how men used to almost objectify you in a certain way. And that still happens to this day, obviously. How did you deal with those kind of people? What did you, like, tell them off, or did someone else tell them off for you, or what? Like, how would you react to those situations?
I guess I'd just kind of. I didn't want to. I'm not a dramatic person. I didn't want to make waves. I just kind of shrug and laugh it off and walk away. It's when it's my fellow musicians, it's especially hurtful. Now I find, actually, among my fellow musicians, I find nothing but respect. And I have to say, I think that's one thing that has changed through the time. I think people are just much more respectful of me. Yeah.
So would that be your advice to give to younger women who deal with those issues? What would you say to any aspiring like younger women who probably deal with these issues all the time, or even deal with, like, self-conscious issues all the time? What advice would you give them?
I find a lot of the women are more empowered to be able to speak their mind. Like, I would dodge things. I just, like, let things pass. I guess it just depends on the person. With the way, some people are more confrontational, and some people will make an issue of something that isn't even an issue. Maybe something that is an issue to one person wouldn't be to another, like somebody opening the door for them. I am grateful for that. Thank you. Somebody opens a door for another person. It's like, I can get that for myself. It depends on the person and what things have happened to them in the past, or the propaganda they've been exposed to. Or I'm not saying one is better than the other. For me, I just prefer to just come with the assumption that people are being thoughtful. And I mean, even if they are saying something about me physically, like at this point, at my age, if somebody thinks I'm pretty, it's like, oh gosh, right. Thank you. Thank you for seeing through all this. Right. But so that's where I am.
That's an interesting but true perspective. Like, for example, I've talked to, at least as a Christian, there are a million and five ways to view Christianity, right? And to approach somebody with a certain mindset, you can totally offend somebody else, and not realize it. And within the music world, especially, that can be really, really intense sometimes. Have you ever experienced that, or you've maybe said something that you thought was perfectly fine, but someone else was like the worst thing you could have ever said? Or has someone like misinterpreted?
Yeah, I guess I have been misinterpreted, and then I will just I will try to communicate. I feel terrible. I'm very, I guess, a rather compassionate person, and I feel terrible if I exceeded someone's boundaries or whatever may have offended them, and I might try to explain myself. Sometimes they just leave, and I won't get the satisfaction of trying to explain or apologize or whatever. But that's their choice, and I try these days not to beat myself up too much. I feel badly if I've hurt somebody's feelings, and I try to make it better. But if I can't, I forgive myself a lot. I think forgiveness is huge. Forgiveness of other people, but also of yourself.
Forgiveness is gigantic, especially if you're like self-conscious, so self-conscious of yourself, or you're introverted and you're always reflecting on yourself. You have to be able to forgive yourself, and because without forgiving yourself, you can't really grow.
Mm-hmm.
So
you'll just get bound by the things you hold against yourself, and you need to let that dissolve so you can move beyond it, not be held back.
What devices have you used in order to forgive yourself? There's, for example, like music or religion, or you're just being your own willpower. What devices have you found the most helpful in order to just let something flow down the river and into oblivion?
I was in a dream group in the mid 80s with it was 6 women. We would get together, and we would do meditations together. We just create our own thing. Some of it is drawn from different indigenous beliefs, universal beliefs of people, but just what was in ourselves and came up, because I think that's where all the religions really come up from, the experience of being a human being in the unfolding of the universe. And so sometimes we would do meditations that were just spontaneous, and sometimes if it was particularly intense, we might build a ritual around it, like of burning, writing the thing down and then burning it or breaking it or letting it go into the universe. So if it's not just something that I can do in the moment, just like let it go, just let it go, telling myself to do that. If it's something particularly intense, I might do those things.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. There's many different techniques that I've seen, and writing them down, burning them is one of them for sure, and that's been rather helpful for me as a person who's been throughout my young life. I've been a rather tortured person. My mother died she died randomly of a heart attack in her sleep when she was like 40.
Wow.
So like literally out of nowhere. And I was only 12, and I had really
my gosh.
Yeah. I had really had a strong connection with her because my father was never around because he was also a gigging musician.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, and he didn't really have that healthy family balance of, I should be taking care of my kid versus the music. And that's not to disparage my father at all. I love him now. He's doing a great job. But at the time, you have to acknowledge that.
Yeah, to have lost your mother, not have the other half there.
And not only that, but the only time that I saw him was when he was drunk, abusive, or I was in trouble. which was sometimes rightly deserved, I must say. One of the stupidest stories I could tell you is I got bored a lot, and I was eating SpaghettiOs, and I was looking up at the ceiling fan, and I was like, and so I started catapulting SpaghettiOs up at the ceiling fan, and it splattered everywhere. And I went as soon as my mom got home. I went up to her and asked, "You want to know how I got SpaghettiOs on the roof?" And and from then I was
you were being experimental.
I was being experimental. They were just shutting down my creative side.
Dang.
But also,
so now you're going for it in a ferocious way.
Right. But to be fair, I can completely understand the anger of, having SpaghettiOs stains on your roof of, the living room. So, but, so that was like the only time I ever saw my dad was whenever he was angry at me, for the most part. I will say there were some good parts in there, but for what I remember are the angry bits and the domestic violence bits that I had to experience. I had to call the cops on my dad.
Wow, that's rough.
Yeah.
It is really a good thing that you have music to help process that stuff from your past. That is another thing I was going to mention. You have the rituals and meditations to do, but a huge way I process things from the past is through music, and even things I'm going through now. Like I lost my mother just recently in July, and the day she died, I had a gig at Hell in a Bucket with Bjorn and some folks, and I could have canceled, but I knew that music was going to help me process that, and it was the best thing I could have done. And so I'm sure, like with having those things from the past, having the music now probably is valuable, even if you're conscious of it or not.
Yeah, I wonder, because I really haven't really delved deeply into it, because I've long bottled up emotions and just don't want to deal with it. But I really haven't had, well, with my mother's stuff I kind of have. I wrote a song about that, and I just can't go through that song without tearing up. But it's a healthy medium. But in regards to the darker stuff, I really haven't unlocked those cages that are hidden deep down. But I also don't feel like it's affecting me as much. So I feel like I feel like that my dad has redeemed himself so much to the point where it doesn't matter almost.
That's redemption is huge too, like forgiveness and redemption. I love that about life, that the things you have done don't have to stain us and restrain us forever, that there are ways of cutting through that. If the people around you too bear enough grace to allow you to break free of those binds and let you thrive and have another life and another life, and that there are all these little deaths we can have in our life and reset.
That's something I feel like is almost lacking a lot these days, especially with cancel culture or whatever. There isn't a lot of room for growth and rebirth, essentially. It's only, that person did this, he's forever this. He can't be anything more, or he or she can't be anything more than this.
Right.
And there's no pathway to society. That's one reason why I'm against the death penalty, actually. Because I believe in redemption so much.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. That I mean, thank heavens for being able to evolve.
Right, yeah. It would be such a boring place if you made one mistake and that was all.
Yeah. We're just done here.
Truthfully, everyone would be a cookie stealer For this is the first bad thing I probably did. It was steal a cookie or something.
Or a spaghetti-o splatter.
Or the spaghetti splatter. I'm the spaghetti splatter. Call me up if you need your stealing redone. Pretty sure the stains are still there. I don't know. But yeah, so do you have any crazy stories like that as a kid?
Oh, I have gruesome, a gruesome story that, like, it wasn't anything as little as SpaghettiOs.
Did it
I
fit
remember
for the radio?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was. I mean, I felt horrible about this. We were just playing in the neighborhood, and we had this this lawnmower. It was a hand lawnmower, and we were playing with it. I was showing my friend how you could like with a straw, cut a straw with that.
No.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It got a little crazy. It was just like the tip of her finger, but I felt it wasn't a huge.
That's good.
But it was still huge, and
Right.
That's probably the worst thing that ever happened to me, to be responsible for. Yeah. That's much worse than SpaghettiOs.
That is a bit that's a lot. Oh, my fingers just feeling.
I know. I
knew one of my good friends from high school had lost her entire leg because of a lawnmower.
Ooh.
As like a child.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and kudos to her for being able to do what she does. She's an artist now. She's really cool.
Yeah, that's the thing that I love seeing about certain people. Like, stuff happens, and some people, it will just like keep them a victim forever. Or you can find the gift in what happened in that, and like it shifts your focus to something else that you can just
thrive in,
excel in, be wonderful in.
I've seen this a few people. They lost their arms and they play guitar with their feet, and I'm just like, what?
In their own way too, like nobody else can.
Like literally nobody else can do this, because who thinks about, if you have hands, there's no way you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna learn how to play guitar with my feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless you're like a circus
you go
act
with
or something.
the path of least resistance.
Right? Yeah. There's was one guy that I saw recently. He had misshapen his hands didn't like develop fully, and he's like missing a hand on one side. So he plays the piano with his chin, is like the small finger appendage that he has, and his like other arm that's in a nub, effectively, and he's playing this beautiful piano piece, and I'm
great.
like, that takes. I can barely get myself to sit down to practice piano with all of my fingers and everything. I can't imagine the struggle and the frustration you might have to do that, to figure it out.
Maybe it comes down to like what I said about like the challenge of a struggle is one of the things that really drives
Pushes
me
us.
musically. And like, if it hadn't been for those limitations, they might not have had such a deep passion and will. Or like, I mean, this is nothing compared to not having the limbs, but, you know, like not being able to speak up or be shy, like those limitations drive you all the more readily to go deeper into music rather than, or any art, rather than it just being something so easy.
So I guess one limitation that you might have had, at least growing up, would be being a woman in a probably mostly male-dominated area. Have you ever experienced like sexism on that kind of level?
Well, it's really changed through the years. I remember with Gypsy Blue, when Diane and I we took a special trip down to Washington, D.C. to some really good places where you can get sound equipment. Now it's easier to get them closer to home, but back then that's where we went. And we were in this, we had the money in our hands, like $800 back then.
That's a lot.
To buy a really nice sound system. That was back in 79. And we went into the store and we had done our research. We knew what we were looking for. And the guys from the store came up to us and they're like, ladies, the mall is down the road.
Oh my gosh. That's so annoying.
I know. And like what I said about, even musicians sort of like, oh, she's a girl, she probably doesn't know about this and this. Now that I've, grown and I do know more things about recording and mics and various technological things. Like I think guys think that you might not be as technologically advanced or know your stuff other than being able to just play your little instrument. I find
that's so condescending to say.
Well, I mean, and this by no means is lots of people, but there are some people along the way through the years who have had that attitude. I find myself right up front, like trying to gracefully show my credentials, like right away show that I know my stuff. Yeah. And I don't like doing that.
Yeah.
It does, but I am aware that I am doing that and right away it works. Like right away I have their
attention.
Yeah. And that they see, okay, she's valid. And there's a thing about being a woman too, like that it's a novelty or something. And like they see I'm a woman, so, oh, you should be in a band with all women. Or,
yeah.
Like that would be so good. And for me, I just see myself as a musician and I want to choose to play with people, not because of their gender, but because of who my soul connects with enough to make this wonderful, like who is the catalyst to a wonderful energy in the music.
That's an interesting conversation because especially nowadays there's some sort of push to have these exotically exclusive bands, like it's an all black band or it's an all women band or it's an all gay band or so like and that's like empowering nowadays in some aspects.
Mm-hmm.
But to have you view that as like what would you view that, what would you say that you view that as?
Well, I think it's cool to, I mean, for some people that's how they would like to do it, and I can see that being all of one kind, all grouped together, it not only in how you relate with one another, but also in the audience that is drawn to you. It definitely sets your audience, or can. So I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's not my thing.
Okay.
Now, I have been in an all-woman band. I was in a band called C2H with Bobby Carmichael and Deanie Hammaker, who used to be in a very popular women's band called Wind and Wood. And so I was the third person in this band with the two of them. And we did a series of women's festivals, and some of them were quite militant, like some, no man could be there. And if you were pregnant, it couldn't be a male baby in your belly.
Goodness,
like
really?
they were very, very strict about it. And I imagine that there are some women who had some horrible, horrible, horrible experiences that they need to just
have women.
Yeah. But kind of felt odd to me in that way. But that said, man, were those crowds super supportive of us. The three of us put out an album. We just like had a gig planned, and so we decided let's make an album to sell at this gig, and it was just on cassette. There weren't CDs out at that point, but I remember we released it at this women's festival, and we were sitting inside this little gazebo signing the cassettes, and there was a line just going around the whole campground to buy these. We just sold out of the entire thing all in at once, and I had the money from that. I talk about this trip I took to Europe, the 5-week trip.
Oh, is that where we get the money from?
I was able to pay a big chunk of it with the money we made from that CD.
That's incredible. It's weird how things work, like the small stuff that you're like, well, if we're gonna do this, maybe we should sell something, and then that just launches new things.
Yeah,
it's, I would say it's God, but other people would say it's like, because as a Christian, I believe God is over all things. But it's really interesting how these little coincidences, at least to me, always happen, and it sets people up for bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger things.
Synchronicities,
yeah.
But also, I think that you create luck. Like, luck is created by knowing what you want, even if it's subliminally, having a strong feeling of what you want, and then being able to recognize a step towards it when it is presented to you and avail yourself of that.
That definitely helps. It's knowing what your goal is, B, you don't even have to know every step, but you have to know some of the steps to get there.
And have trust that, like, let go of that rock or that lily pad and, like, go to the next
and leap
one.
For it, yeah. Because, you're not going to get anywhere unless you take a step or take a leap. It's never going to happen unless you do it. Like, this podcast wouldn't have happened had I not just, taken a giant leap and asked, the LBC campus if I could use their radio station.
I am so grateful for that. I'm so excited. This is the first interview I've had that I wasn't nervous for. Like, I've finally gotten to the age, and maybe just the setting that you create, the warmth here, that I feel very comfortable with this.
Well, thank you. It's been a journey for sure. And it's just getting started.
Yay!
And I it's really exciting.
You're making the leaps.
Yeah, it's and especially as like an introvert. Do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm not an extrovert. I
switched.
Do enjoy my solitude a lot, but then if I'm in the right mood, I really love hanging out with people too. I think I like a little bit of both.
Yeah, so I've noticed that for sure, that I've definitely, as I've grown older, especially, I've enjoyed the company of a few, not a lot, but a few people. Like, going out to gigs is fine, but only because I'm only connecting with like Cody Gilburn or Bjorn or I'm not at the center of attention of a major group. Then it's like, okay, I can't do this. This is a lot. But especially as an introvert, I feel like it's harder to realize those steps, and because a lot of those steps involve other people, and because you can't do everything yourself, and that's something. If you think you can make it or be famous or get your stuff out there by yourself, you're sorely mistaken. It can be done, but it's so much easier, even if it's just a friend. A close, like a family member, even. It's so much, because, your family knows so many people, and it really started with me because my roommate was an extrovert, and he dragged me out to all these events, and that's how I started really making connections.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, and I hated it, But I realized that without my good friend Matt Cross, insanely good drummer, I would argue he's better than Woody, which is saying something. But even just knowing him and him dragging me out to all the different places, it's so important community to have that and to be willing to engage with it and to just stick yourself in it, because it's hard sometimes.
Yeah, I think just getting out of your comfort zone.
Oh, absolutely.
Can be just so exhilarating because, well, like this, like, oh, can I interview you? And I'm like, ah. I am so glad I said yes, because, you get to, when you overcome your fears and just get to the next step, that is such a big part of your personal evolution.
It's so funny because I had the same reaction when I asked her, like, should I ask her? I'm just gonna do it. And I was kind of scared. Scared because we're both kind of almost introverted and are more comfortable than or we're more okay with being comfortable than uncomfortable. So it's kind of funny that a lot of the people you'll reach out to are looking to do something. They just don't have you just have to ask. And every opportunity is missed if you don't ask somebody. I realized that Chicago is coming to AMT in like May.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, it would be insanely awesome because there's a bunch of Chicago members and they're all at their older age. And I've realized that a bunch of older musicians love to talk.
Yeah, it's true.
Anyway, so I felt like, okay, this is an opportunity that I could have Chicago on this podcast, even though it's more focused towards local acts. Who's gonna miss up a Chicago interview? You know what I mean?
Right.
I've been a fan of them for a long time, so I reached out to them. Unfortunately, they haven't gotten back to me, and that's okay. But I did it.
Can't hurt to ask. Yeah,
it can't hurt to ask.
Rather than like the situation is over and you just think, man,
I just should have.
Yeah.
And if they reach out to me in like the next few days, it's gonna be awesome anyway.
Yep.
And it's even if they don't respond or even if they say no, at least I did it, and I won't be afraid to do it again.
Yeah, that's huge.
And yeah, it's another thing you got to get used to is rejection.
Right. And to that, like you said, ask for it. I think it's really important to know what it is you want, not only to be able to ask for it, but also if someone comes up to you and wants something of you, I put it through myself and I think, now, is that something I truly, truly do want? And I listen to my body. And if my body is like, I really don't. And it's not just my fear talking. It's just that thing isn't something I want. I feel perfectly comfortable now saying no. I didn't used to feel comfortable saying no. I felt guilty about it or something. But also, I have exuberant yeses to give too.
Yeah, it's a balance sometimes, because sometimes you'll say yes to everything. You'll be a yes man, yes man, yes man.
Yeah.
That's something I have had to learn, that you can't say yes to everything because you're gonna burn yourself out.
Right.
And that's something that's more dangerous.
And you get yourself on the wrong tangent if you're just saying yes to everything without checking within yourself if that is going to take you in the direction that feels true to you. You're going to end up in a tangent that is not your truth.
Yeah, that's another, yeah, because you end up being fake, or you lying to yourself, or
exactly. Just it's like a lie, saying yes to something that you truly mean no to,
or yes to something that you completely disagree with.
Correct.
Yeah, that's a huge thing that I feel like a lot of people are scared to say sometimes, because especially when it comes to like social issues, whether or not you agree with something or something other, having to say something and having to stand up for yourself and your beliefs is something that is dangerous sometimes. Has there ever been a spot where you've had to stand up for yourself firm, and were there consequences, or how did that situation play out? I'm sure, given the plethora of social issues going on from like the 60s onward, that there might have been some of those situations.
Let's see. I mean, I can think of like the first thing that popped into my head where I felt kind of scared was when my mom and I were just in a pizza joint, and some guy came up to us and was super forward and basically saying, I don't need your yes.
I'm gonna have you.
Yeah, basically. I mean, and this was in a pizza joint, but like he was big and he probably could have dragged us off.
Right.
But, I'm not saying this is how everybody could do it, but I went in, listened to my personal self, and I started just talking to him as a person, as a compassionate person, and talking about his mother and about God and how this was my mother, and just bringing him back to his humanity. He was in a place that was off his center, and I brought him back to his center, and it ended up being a very peaceful thing. There was one time, that I was worried with the situation. My husband and I were walking in, I think it was Lisbon again, and we had heard about these people, like the police there, that would trick people by trying to sell them drugs, and then if you went for it, they would throw you in jail. And he tried to show us a thing, and my husband was looking at it. It was like carved into something, and I was like, no, we're going. And the guy persisted, and I just turned to him and went, it was just like the first thing that came to me, and he was like, get on, ran off. And like sometimes it's just like this, what comes up from your toes on up, and it worked.
Funny.
I was a cat. I hissed
right.
at him.
Yeah, that's awesome. That I expect nothing less, to be quite honest. There's been a few times where I've been in those kind of situations in downtown Lancaster. For anybody who has never heard me laugh, I have one of a ludicrous laugh. I haven't laughed too much at open mics, I don't think.
Oh. Now I'll consider that a challenge.
Yeah, but mine's really high pitched, insanely loud. It's ridiculous. And it's so ridiculous that it gets me called out across campus. Like people will be like, "Oh, I heard you," while walking to class. And I'm like, "Thanks." Quick tangent, but I actually got recognized by my laugh. But do you know who Mike Block is? He created the cello strap.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And there's another guy, Sandeep Das, who plays the tablas really, really well. And they're like world-class musicians. And
oh, nice.
Yeah. And they came to the Trust, which is the LBC's like performing space.
Oh, right.
Like premium performing space. It's like right next to the market.
Mm-hmm.
And I had gone there, and they had said some funny jokes, and I laughed. And the next day, they since they have such a close relationship with LBC, they had a master class for us in our forum, and they had done the same jokes, and I laughed again. And they stopped their set and said, "Who is? I know that laugh." And they brought me up, and I got pictures of them, and it said, "Your laugh brought us so much joy that night."
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I was like,
you should sample that.
I really, so many people have said I should sample it.
You should, and like every key of the keyboard would have it in a different tone.
That'd be funny. Yeah, but I
could make a symphony of your laughter.
That'd be really fun. Granted, I can't really laugh now. My voice is shot. But yeah, I've been told so many times you should sample your laugh because I can manipulate it into like a kind of jokery, creepy laugh too. So it's kind of fun sometimes. I was Joker for Halloween, and I legitimately scared the crap out of some people. But anyway, this laugh had gained some attention of this random dude. I was walking with my girlfriend at the time back to the car. And he was like, hey, yo. And I just wanted to ignore it because I knew exactly the kind of guy it was just by the way of his voice. It was a drug addict of some sort. And I just wanted to ignore it because I didn't even know he was talking to me. But I had heard it, and so I had my girlfriend, but she wasn't really paying attention. But I realized if I don't respond, something might happen. So I turned around and said, hello, what's up? And he straight up asked me if I had, hardcore drugs on me. And I'm like, no, not at all. And I'm sorry, man. And I, quickly left. But because my laugh does sound like I'm kind of on drugs sometimes. And it's that ridiculous. But I was scared, not for myself, but more of my girlfriend, because I don't know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And she didn't clock what was happening at all. She was going to this college, and a lot of the people here at this college are rather sheltered. I haven't been in the world as much, and she didn't clock that was a dangerous situation because I could see that he had a piece on him.
Oh wow!
So.
The world has all kinds of situations.
The world has all kinds of situations.
We have our choice of how to respond to them in a hopefully compassionate way or whatever.
And hopefully the right way.
With a hiss.
Sometimes it takes a hiss. Sometimes it says, no, thank you, sir, and walk away. It's how it is. I think we are going to take a little bit of a break. We have a few songs from Robin.
Yes.
Would you like to introduce your first one?
Okay. This one, Living the Dream. I was actually around New Hope, and this song started coming to me, and I was by the river. Sometimes being around water really brings out the creativity in me. And I hadn't brought my violin, but I knew I wanted to buy a mandolin. So I bought one, and by the banks of the river there, I wrote this song, and it was the first one I've written on a mandolin.
Ready to play?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This night, on a heart to heart, no words, just a heart to heart, these arms, they wanna hold you tight, not too tight, but oh, just right, these nights. I wanna prove to you something no pretty prose could do these nights. I wanna leave no doubt, nothing to misconstrue or to figure out. The objects in the mirror may be closer than they seem. To live in the dream. just living the dream. This night I wanna just forget all obstacles that we had ever met. This night I wanna just fall in and let the world go and do its bit. Though I know we all know what lies in between. Here and living the dream. Just living the dream. He said a penny for your thoughts, 'cause you're a million miles away. I think, oh, not so far as that, 'cause you don't know how close I came. Don't pinch me now, I'm gliding down a whole beam. Just dreaming the dream. Living the dream.
That's really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I recorded that one in my basement. It was just all me, which these days I'm doing a lot of for my own stuff, just kind of playing instruments sometimes that I'm not really familiar with, but just make them work.
Mm.
But like for these demos I do in the basement, it's often a pretty sparse arrangement like that. But I find I like that. I like to hear all the little parts, interlocking parts, as opposed to one big, thick wall.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's really nice to have just, a guitar and a singer sometimes, or in this case, a mandolin, violin, and a singer.
And viola, I think, was in there too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've always, I have a violin that I'm starting to learn how to play, and a cello that I'm starting to learn to play, but I'm realizing viola is hard to find.
Oh, really?
Yeah, viola is hard to find. I only know one viola player actually, so I'm sure they're hard to find too. But do you play viola a little bit? Or?
I do play viola, yeah.
Like
my husband's dad used to play viola, and I was fortunate enough to be given that instrument.
Oh, that's cool. But you currently play like a violin, like fiddle violin, right?
I mean, I don't really think of the way I play as fiddle. In fact, I'm really not very good at old-timey fiddle or bluegrass fiddle. Really, like from the get-go, when I wanted to sound like a gypsy violinist, I think I'm more influenced by that style rather than a bluegrassy thing. Like I just don't have the right zigzag, jag, whatever you need for it, looseness, whatever. there's more of an urgency, I think, sometimes in what I end up playing. But I really do enjoy playing violin. Like, it's such an expressive instrument that you can you whisper or growl or scream. Or just sing.
Just tiptoe sometimes.
Yeah.
How? Because I know just playing violin just a little bit, you get really hard fingers.
Yeah, the calluses.
Have you ever made your fingers bleed at some point? I'm sure.
Yeah. I think more. I mean, it's rare that I've been away from the violin long enough that I really did damage to them because the calluses are so profound. Towards the beginning, when I first met Bjorn, we played a festival called the Loyal Sock Festival, I think it was called, and it was like a camp out thing, and we ended up playing like first thing in the morning, all through the day, and into the wee hours of the night for several days. And I did have blisters on my fingers and just like contusions on my neck. Like my neck, it's like a permanent hickey I have.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I often feel it more in my neck than I do in my fingers.
How do you keep a healthy body with your while doing violin? Because I'm sure that you've probably had so many more neck issues or.
Yeah, I'm a massage therapist, and so I do believe in getting massages. Although I don't get enough myself, I do have. My son gave me a machine that does shiatsu massage. You can just kind of get those massaging knobs just right where you want them. So I do that. And there's times it's just like boulders on my shoulders.
I'm sure that you've had many a stretch as a violinist.
Yeah.
You had to, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you do definitely stretching and just moving the whole body. I do like going running and just get that kind of brings you back to center as opposed to in one direction.
Right, yeah. There's a few violinists that I know that are constantly always like this.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny, but it's also like...
Yeah, and I get headaches, and I do wonder how many of them come from the spinal issues that happen in the neck.
Yeah. That's gotta suck. But, sacrifices you'll make to do music.
Yep. It's worth it.
Yeah. A lot of the time my hands will start cramping up or because I'm not used to kind of stretching my arm or my hand out. And I, to be quite honest, I'm probably doing it in unhealthy ways because I don't know the form as much.
Not that our bodies were meant to be in these particular positions, too.
The bow hold, which is so weird.
Yeah. Like before I really got into playing music more recently, like I went through a stage where when I told you my husband decided to break up Modern Icons band, and I went through an emotional tailspin at that point.
I doubt it.
A major depression, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to make my own album, and I brought together a lot of great musicians from the area. Charlie Burnett on bass, who actually played in Modern Icons. And, now their names are escaping me. Everybody. Chad Kinsey on guitar, Paul Murr on drums, Matt Thomas on keyboards. Anyway, brought together these great musicians. laid down tracks, but then I couldn't continue at that first studio. Like they never could get us in. So I brought those tracks to another place and did a lot of work on them over there, and was just finally getting into the finishing stages of mixing it. And the next time I called him, he had deleted all the files. The whole process from beginning to end had taken maybe 3 years. It was just clawing my way through this process. When he did that, it was like, I don't know, a lightning bolt struck me, and I just like another deeper tailspin. And
that's got to be harsh, man.
My mom gave me, other than life itself, the best gift that anyone had ever given me. She gave me the money to set up my own studio. And this was before I was super not technologically intuitive or anything. I didn't even do emails. Like I didn't get anywhere near a computer. It was before Facebook or anything. And so it was a huge learning curve. I got the nicest equipment I could get for this amount of money and really did my homework on it. And then I was so afraid I was going to mess up the things. Like you see my 3x5 cards here I have here. Well, I had them just taped beside my unit to tell me what knob to turn and everything's just so I was afraid blue sparks would fly from the whole thing. But really figured out how to do this and went from that place of deep depression where I couldn't get out of bed for a long time and to just throwing myself into writing my own music and creating it on this machine and playing instruments. Like I played some electric guitar on it. I didn't really know how to play that, but I did just the parts I needed, like a bunch of linear parts interlocking, and got a keyboard and like did some banjo and all kinds of things. Used the cello for bass line. Anyway, so I'm sorry, I lost track of your initial question there.
So did I, but that's fine. We could talk about. Do you want to talk more about like the whole like cycle of being in depression and how you get out of that? And
yeah, I mean, just the kids would go off to school, and I'd go into my studio, and I may not have eaten breakfast or brushed my hair or my teeth. I just go in and throw myself into it, and came up with a bunch of songs. And I guess this was came from like hurting your body. Like I during that period of time, I hadn't been really playing with a band. I was just playing in the studio, which isn't as much wear and tear as playing, 3-4 hours with a band, which back then it was 4-hour gigs. So during the time that I wasn't playing with the band, and there was a little time in there I was playing with a rock band, Backdoor Victoria, with some friends, and finally I pulled together Lavacave, and then I had this wealth of demos that I had been making in my basement to share with Nick DeSanto, is my partner in crime.
Is that the one-man band
Yeah,
guy?
he's the one-man band dude.
I've heard a lot about him, and I want to talk to him.
Yeah, he would be a great person to interview. WITF, I think, interviewed him. When we first played together, he wasn't playing drums and all that stuff. He evolved into what he is doing now, kind of going through Lavacave. First, it was just the two of us playing together, and then a friend of ours played banjo, so we threw him in, Kenny. And And we had a few gigs, and then Kenny left for California, and Nick felt weird about being just two people again. And so he learned how to play sitting down, playing drums with his feet while he played guitar, and then playing tambourine with his elbow.
So it was the origins of him being a one-man band.
That's
how so interesting.
It was solving this problem of how can we still have a fuller sound with only two people. So we played one gig like that. Our very first gig, we knew we eventually wanted to get a stand-up bass player. We played one gig that was opening for this fantastic gypsy folk rock band called Fish Tank Ensemble. And it was there that we met our next bass player, Donna Volis, ended up being a bass player with us. And so we spent time teaching her all our songs. But during all this and playing gigs all together, I was afraid that I had been having a lot of pain at the base of my thumb, and I guess it's arthritis stuff. I was afraid, doing all this music is really going to make that bad. But contrary to that, for some reason, it made it all better.
Oh, wow.
Like it's like using it, keeping things fluid and flowing, just made the pain, and maybe it was the endorphins too, I don't know. The magic stuff that gets released when you make music, it just took the pain away.
That's something I've been realizing a lot. I marched the Glockenspiel.
Oh, that's intense.
Yeah. So I've had a lot of back trauma, but a lot of, back strength from that as well.
Yeah.
But recently it's been the case ever since I kind of graduated college. I've just been laying in my bed doing nothing because I've also not the happiest person, despite what it may seem. But so I've realized that I've got a hunched shoulder, so I gotta straighten myself up. But it hurts to be in a healthy position.
Oh, your body isn't accustomed to that.
Not only that, but it's being forced and contorted to be a certain way, and then going back to the natural way is unnatural, and you're stretching these muscles you've never stretched in 10, 15 years. I'm not that old, but a little bit of hyperbole, but it's hard to the point where now that I'm actually doing stuff and I'm standing again, I've been laying in my bed for a year and a half almost, just watching TV, laying on my side. So it's being able now standing up, doing work, doing this stuff, doing other stuff. It's hard to stand for a long time, and especially when I'm doing a gig or out at an open mic, it's hard to keep the energy going without having, I just gotta sit down.
Ah.
Yeah, but as slowly, surely as I'm using the muscles, it's getting easier and easier. And
yeah,
less
probably.
and less painful.
Yeah, the more, like I said, playing the music made my body feel better. The more you move, the more you just keep the fluidity going. And
I've been having to stretch a lot.
Yeah, that's great for you.
Yeah, and especially so I there was a time I played soccer when I was a kid. So I played baseball and basketball. So I was this super athletic kid, and I remember being able to bend down and completely touch my toes without a problem. And now I can barely bend down and touch my knees, and it's oh wow, I really need to fix something. And
yeah,
so
because you're young.
I'm only 22, and
I don't feel that at my age, which is a nice thing because I've probably felt like that at certain times in my life, and things have gotten better. That's I'm here to tell you, youngsters, that like you might feel really crappy at a certain stage of your life, and it's not going to go downhill from there. That things can,
It's a roller coaster.
yeah,
There's
things
ups
can
and
get
downs.
better.
And yeah, that's I feel like that's a lot of things, like especially the younger generation, that we kind of feel like, because memes are popular, right? And we consume all this information through short, little pictures,
Yeah.
and we have this expectation of, when in our 20s when we have back pain, that's gonna last forever, but it's not. As long as if you keep exercising and moving around. If you take care of your body, it's going to take care of itself.
Yep.
And people don't realize that. And I didn't realize that until recently. And now I'm starting to reap the benefits of being able, and now I can at least touch the top of my shoes by bending down. And
Good.
so I'm getting
I mean,
better.
it is, we talked about instruments being these vessels for what we do. And I mean, if we do bang them up too much, they aren't going to do much for us. And these are our ultimate vessels and tools. And we really do need to keep them in good shape. And yeah, so I try as hard as I can or probably I could be trying harder, but to keep myself in good shape, just to be able to fulfill my joy, which is the music and being creative.
And a large part of it for me is that I want to have kids someday. That's because I love children, and I love the idea of having my own children, and that kind of thing. I want to be. I work with kids I teach kids how to swim, and it's just like baby fever constantly for me. So like a year or two ago, I was over 300 pounds.
Wow.
In weight. Yeah, you wouldn't have known. I wear my weight really well. Even now, sitting here, I'm 270 pounds.
Wow.
You would have never guessed.
No.
Right. But I largely assume that's because of the calf muscles and the back muscles I've gotten from marching and all this stuff. But I realized that I'm not at a healthy weight, and if I keep living like this, I'm not going to be able to give my children or my future self the possibility to thrive,
right,
or to live. So I'm mainly doing it. I've realized that you have to invest in the future, not your past, because there's so many people that say, "Oh, if I would have done this, I would have," or they think about their past, but they never think about their future.
Right now is the point.
Is the point
of change. Like that's where you control it all. Not only what you're going to do, but also how you perceive what you have done. You can feel really depressed about these things that happened in the past, or you can look at them in a different way and see, man, I really learned this thing from what happened back there. I also, you brought up children, and I want to
yes, I do want
talk
to talk
about that children. As far as being a musician. I've known some great musicians who were like, yeah, well, woulda, coulda, shoulda. We're having kids, and so I can't be doing music anymore. And actually, woulda, coulda, shoulda is exactly what our bass player at the time in Modern Icons said when Steve and I told him that I was pregnant with my daughter, Marisha.
That was your first?
He said, he basically thought, well, we can't do what we wanted to do anymore because of this. And I am here to say, on the other side of it, that having kids it did not hold us back from music at all. Now, we did utilize babysitters, but, we were playing sometimes 3 times a week, and then I'd have a feast or 2 on top of that. But those were all nights, and because my job was just the night times, most of that time is their sleeping time anyway. I was free to be with the kids all during the days. So I got to just luxuriate in being with them and feeding them the whole time and playing with them and reading to them and doing stuff on the farm. And then hand them over to the babysitter when it was time to clean them up and put them to bed. So
give the dirty work to the babysitter.
Yeah, we paid them, and they were happy for it. And my kids, like, there are some people who are like, oh, I don't want my kids going to babysitters. My kids loved having the babysitters. It really taught them how to hang with new people, and they still have some relationships with babysitters in the past. And when we would play gigs like at a winery or something where it was in the evenings and families would bring their blankets out and picnics, the family, like our moms and dads would come out or lay out the blanket and take the kids along, and then they would run around the vineyard with the other kids, and then when we'd play, they'd be in front of the stage and dancing, and they would make banners for us that we would put across the stage, or they'd help us hold the signs to sell CDs. They recount some of those moments, of some of their happiest moments of their childhood. And now my twins, Tosh and Weston, are both musicians themselves. And so I just want to encourage all musicians out there who are thinking about hanging up music just because they want to have children too. Don't do it.
Or refraining from having children because they want to do music. It's not gonna. There's such a culture today that says you have to put your career first, or you have to do this first. You can do both. It's not entirely impossible, and in fact, you're probably going to be better off for it, because at a certain point, especially as a woman, you can't have babies anymore. There is a timeline.
Yeah,
and it's going to get harder and harder as you go older and older. And if you keep pushing it back, it's going to be harder and harder to raise those kids.
You lose the opportunity to do it.
And lose extra time with those kids. So if you get it done earlier in your career, you're going to have longer time with your kids.
Right. Like I said, I was big and pregnant with the twins while I was rocking out on the Chameleon stage. And then years later, in their band, they got to revisit that stage and say, the last time we were here, we were in utero.
That's funny. Yeah, I met Wes the other day at a telescope mic. I think I've seen him around. Weston, yeah. I think I've seen him around before, but I never really clocked that he was your son.
Yeah.
He was like, so yeah, I heard you're interviewing my mother this next week. And I'm like, what? Oh, yeah, Robin. That's right. You're Robin. Are you Robin? Oh, wow. Because your daughter looks exactly like you.
Oh, thank you.
Marisha. Yeah. Like, I saw that and I was like, wait a minute.
Double take.
Yeah, right. Because I've known a few other Chambers having the last name. So I just, don't, especially when we're around like Lancaster County, I don't really think much about, there's 1,000,005
related.
Stoltz.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think of anything of it. And I was like, oh, shoot, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you think,
and she became a dancer too.
Did she?
So it was related to music as well.
So you think you had a really good, healthy balance between family and music?
Absolutely. In fact, I think doing music helped me engage in parenthood more deeply because, as I said, I was able to be there during the days.
Is there any? So when I had Nathan on the story, he had said that his mother had, or when he had talked about this tribe that gave whatever children specific songs to the people that were born as like a tradition, and then whenever they did something wrong, they would sing it back towards them, and so much more. And so that way it would like bring them back almost to being a human.
That's what I said about coming back to center, like they're relating out here, and like that would.
Yeah.
What a great way of bringing somebody back to center.
I know. I was thinking about. I was like, yo, that's got to be the most convicting moment of it. Like, imagine like you've done something that's horrible wrong, and then they come out in love and sing your old song, your personal song. They sang to you when you were born.
Man, that is something we should adopt.
Right? Yeah.
Totally.
I'm thinking
that's
about
an
it.
excellent idea. Because don't forget who you are, and we love you. You've done this. We love you. This is who you are.
I was wondering if you, and I was thinking about my childhood that my mother used to always sing with Arms Wide Open by Creed.
Oh.
I was wondering if you had any specific songs you would think about or sing to your children.
I mean, I just made up stuff.
Okay.
And sometimes if they'd be crying, there's this song, there's an island way out in the sea where the babies, they all grow on trees. And it's jolly good fun to sit in the sun and watch little babies in the breeze. But you better watch out if you sneeze.
Yeah.
Achoo. And that always brought them in.
That's cool. I wonder what if they ever got angry today. You started singing that. I wonder what would happen.
Yeah, I'm curious if it struck. So I haven't sung that.
Funny experiment.
Yeah.
So now that you're older and your kids are doing their own thing, how much contact do you still keep a healthy balance with them?
Oh, yeah. I was just, Weston brought out his tuba to open mic last night, and I was there in support of him. And just the night before, Marisha had a friend who used to be a roommate in college who was playing at Tellus, and I joined her to watch that.
I really missed out last night.
Yeah, well, he's going to bring the tuba out some more, and he also brought out the ukulele and is doing a White Stripes tune. And I go out. I was doing a lot of recording in Pittsburgh, where Weston's twin brother lives, and often when I was in Pittsburgh, I would either crash at his and his girlfriend's place, or be put up and just get together with them for supper. And but yeah, my kids are like my favorite people. I just adore hanging out with them. They're just like super fun, intelligent, creative, zany, wonderful people.
Is there so I didn't get a lot of time to talk with my mother, and I specifically remember talking to her about like some of her more adult experiences. And she was like, "Well, we gotta wait till you're 18 to tell you that, or whatever."
Aww.
Yeah, so those are like
didn't get
to right. But she has some of the most fun stories. Is there anything that you would want your children to know that you haven't told them yet?
You know, I am, and they'll probably be the first to second this, that pretty much I just blurt out everything that comes up as it comes up. There isn't really anything I've held back from them that is something that they should know.
That's good.
Yeah, it's we really and it goes both ways. I mean, I think for them as children, there are certain things that they want to keep, don't want to share with their parents. Right. But for the most part, there's a lot of fluidity about everything in our lives.
That's good. Do you have any advice for parents, how to parent a kid, or?
Well, I think for me, the biggest thing was just be thoroughly planted in the moment and drink up the joy of it or whatever. I mean, I'm not saying that every moment was, yeah, it was intense, but just remember that it all passes so quickly. And I knew in that moment that I could be sitting here in this moment looking back on it. So I wanted to just like absorb it with every little bit of me that I had. And I'm really glad I did that. Like when they left and were having these very independent lives, like they are not the kind of kids that call every day or even every week. And that's a good thing in my book, in that they feel so well grounded in their life that they don't need to hang on to mommy, and that when we reach out for each other, it's because we really are seeking each other's true company and energy. And so I felt very complete when they went off on their own lives.
That was a kind of interesting thing I had to deal with. Thankfully, my grandmother had moved into the area, so we moved in with her.
Oh.
Well, there's a whole other story. We lost a house in 2008 because of the crash. That was before my mother died, and then thank God that my grandmother was just like, I want to be closer to my daughter, so she moved from Pittsburgh to Salisbury
sweet.
right before we lost the house. Yeah, so we got to move in with her. But she is very much a family person, and now that she's lost a daughter, before losing herself, she's very, very attached to us, to me and my sister, and having like she will see that like I have $50 in my bank account and just randomly add another 100. And
so nice to know when somebody has your back like that.
Super nice, yes. However, I want to be more independent, and that's not to say that I'm gonna let myself go homeless, because that's my grandmother wouldn't allow that. But I do want to be independent. A large part of me moving out here was because I didn't want to live in my parents' house for until my grandmother died. And especially because there is little to no opportunity in at least Salisbury, Maryland, that I saw for music, as opposed to a place like Lancaster, PA, where
isn't Lancaster great for
Lancaster
that?
It's so great because I can do this podcast. There's no way in the world I could have done this podcast down in Salisbury, Maryland, where it's basically Salisbury and then Ocean City, Maryland, and that's about it. There's nothing culturally going on there. There's nothing musically happening there besides older folk, and there's nothing wrong with that. The older folks doing their rock set and country set. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But it's not where I wanted to be. I wanted to be put more into
innovative
the action. And do something and you have to be in a spot where you can do something. And so I wanted to move up here and be able to support myself by myself. And that was a large learning experience, because and the reason why I got this idea is because my dad had he was the for lack of a better word, dumber person in the relationship. Not to say that he was dumb at all, but he kind of let my mother do all the taxes, handle all the finances.
Oh, right.
She was like the high school teacher. She was more
organized and
more
clerical.
organized. Yep, she was. Yeah, she literally taught science, so she had that like logic brain down. Smartest woman I've ever met was my mother. So when she died, my dad was like,
"What now?
Well, what do I do?"
And
like, how do I do taxes? How do I do all these simple day-to-day stuff that he probably should have learned by himself? And he will admit that he should have learned by himself. He just, she did it, so I didn't have to.
So that's something you'd like to learn.
Yeah, independence. But I love my grandmother, but she's too generous.
That's so rough.
That's so rough. How dare she be generous to me? But it's also kind of like, well, I don't want her to waste her money on me. So I feel like it's a hard position, because yes, I'm very, very incredibly grateful for my grandmother, and it's indescribable the amount of happiness and gratefulness that I have for her. But I also don't want to seem like I'm taking advantage of her either, because she's very willing to help me out, and without any repayment at some point. She was just like, just don't worry about it. I'll just give it to you.
Well, the sooner you like really get into the music thing and start like making lots of money, there's less of a need for her to.
There's less of a need. There's more of advantage to me to give back.
Yeah,
because that's what I want to do. Because she's invested in me so much.
And so you can do that not only from doing live shows like I've been doing, but also I'm doing a lot of studio work as well. And that can be a nice income too. And you just said how diverse you're becoming, learning these various instruments. That's a really nice thing to have.
Yeah. I was talking to Liam Galliano yesterday, and he had said, yeah, the first time I posted a picture with me and my upright bass, he just got millions of calls to be like, hey.
That's really sought after. It's true.
Yeah. So I'm slowly realizing that maybe I just, because during 2020, everyone did their like little hobby, and my hobby was buying used instruments. Because they were super cheap.
Great. Yeah, people were like, I need money now.
Yeah, right. And I was like,
take this.
So I've gotten so many instruments. I got a nice lap steel
Ooh,
guitar.
Sweet.
Yeah, I've got an accordion, an auto harp.
Ah, nice. I have an auto harp too.
Yeah,
I love that.
So I've gotten all these unique instruments that would probably do well if I learned them. Probably. But I legitimately would do well. I got a dulcimer. If I can learn, I'm sure there's just giant folk place here. It's
that's power to be able to add all those different colors to recordings, and that's what I like to do in my studio. I have a bunch of weird instruments. Again, like you, I'm not quite sure how to play them, but I kind of have an idea of what I can do with them,
and especially in that, now that I'm in a spot where I can take care of myself financially, I can do what I wanted. I can do this. I wouldn't be able to do this if I wasn't secure financially. But I'm moving into a new apartment where I have the space to actually learn these instruments and take my knowledge deeper. And it goes without saying, but sometimes we can be trapped in our own homes and not realize it. For example, I've been living in this apartment, and I'm not knocking my apartment. I've been very grateful to have this apartment for 2 years. But it was a 10-foot by like 8-foot space where it was literally, some people could call that a walk-in closet. And working in there and sleeping in there in the same room was really unhealthy.
That's intense.
It's intense. Yeah. It's there's been a lot of studies that's really unhealthy for you. So I never really did anything with it. All the instruments were just in the corner, and I had so much time to delve into something, but I just never did it because I felt so cramped.
Yeah,
almost. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity to just go somewhere else and being able to grow in these certain areas and make more of a name for myself, because I could be a one-man band, or I could be a one-man orchestra, you know what I mean, and play everything by myself. And
like me, just like record just layers and layers, keep on layering it up. I enjoy doing that. This next song, though, that I did, this was done by my band Modern Icons. And during the 18 years we were together, we had a series of 3 different stand-up bass players. You said it's hard to find stand-up bass players. We were lucky to find 3 good ones. The first one was Mike Shank, who we did a lot of we got off the ground with. And then we were with Anders Alfelt from around the Philadelphia area. This third one was Charlie Burnett, and he's who Steve Chambers and I recorded this one with over at Michelle Mercure's studio in Lancaster. We had a lot of fun.
Plan. I believe in the way things fall. I believe in the way your cookie crumbles. I believe in gravity's spiral. I believe in the river's wild meander. I believe in the path of a rolling stone. I believe in the mad dog's want and wander. I believe in the ramble of a withered crown. Chaos is my friend. Chaos is my friend. Chaos is my friend, and it rhymes around the bend. I believe in the capricious play of love. I believe in the dance of a dusky wind. I believe in the ways of senses waking. Don't believe in sin. I don't believe there are mistakes. I don't believe in meant to be's. I do believe in the twisting trail of a ever-changing destinies. Chaos is my friend. Chaos is my friend. Chaos is my friend. And the rhymes around the bend. Chaos is my friend. Chaos is my friend. Chaos is my friend. And the rhymes around the bend. Gravity's spiral. I believe in the river's wild meander. I believe in the path of a rolling stone. I believe in the mad dog's want and wander. I believe in the ramble of a weathered crone. Chaos is my friend. Chaos is my friend. Chaos is my friend. And it rhymes around the bend again. Chaos is my friend. Chaos is my friend. Chaos is my friend. And it rhymes around the bend. And it rhymes around the bend. And it rhymes and it rhymes and it rhymes and it rhymes around the bend. And it rhymes around the bend. And it rhymes around the bend. And it rhymes 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 around the end.
That was really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, where did that song come from?
I guess, well, my daughter, Marisha, when she was little, I would sit on the floor with her and I'd show her how to stack the blocks just so, and she'd just look at it and go, and they just fly across. And every time I would try to show her some organization or anything of the cubes. She would just like obliterate it. And
that's hilarious.
And so I thought, oh man, chaos is her friend. And then I thought, well, she comes by it naturally. I do allow some chaos into my life. And frankly, I think there's a good place for chaos in one's life. Like that's the juicy stuff that you can
because
draw from.
No matter what, chaos is going to happen either way. So you might as well take advantage of it anyway.
Yeah, and sometimes lean into it.
Because sometimes the best growth and the best opportunities can come from leaning into the chaos.
Yeah, not being afraid of it. Not trying to put all the blocks in a row all the time.
And sometimes you got to shatter your own blocks sometimes. And that's...
Don't be a blockhead.
Don't be a blockhead. And don't cage yourself in a wall. However that saying is.
Break those walls down.
Break your own walls down. It's important to life because we're always building walls, and we don't realize it that we're building walls until all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute.
Why am I all alone?
Why am I all alone? Or why am I feeling this way when this certain thing pops up? And so it's a constant battle of self-reflection and self-exploration. I feel like a lot of people don't explore themselves or know themselves even. And it's a really sad point sometimes because some people just don't know why they feel the way they do and aren't willing to find out.
Especially right now. Man, I mean, you can't go into a place that doesn't have screens everywhere. There used to be these sweet little historic taverns that there were no screens. You had to be here and now. And also just looking within, like even to know, how do I feel about this or that? What direction do I truly want to go without all these carrots dangling in front of me from outside my being? Like to really go deep, but people just want desperately to be distracted from going in too deep. Like sometimes it's freaking scary in there, what you'll find in your dusty corners. And so there's the screen with its little memes all tied up in a bow and all the propaganda that the world tells you what you want or how you should look or what you should eat or anything. You don't like go to the source and truly consider. And so that's part of the reason I enjoy solitude, is because I do a lot of self-reflection. Sometimes I wonder if it's too much, but then I try to balance it by getting out and playing music with others.
Do you ever find it helpful to go on like social media fasts or phone fasts where you just put your phone away in a drawer and forget about it for a week?
I haven't done that intentionally. I'll just get involved in something. Like I'm not a person who always keeps the phone on my person. It'll be like I'll lose it in the house somewhere, like where did I put it? Because I get really involved in something I'm doing. And so my time away from my phone comes out of having something better to do.
That's fair. My girlfriend was really self-conscious about this. She realized she was taking way too much time on her phone and not really focusing on other work, or it would just distract her from doing, like homework or going out with friends, or even if she was out with friends, she'd be looking at her phone. So it
is truly addictive.
It is truly, and I'm realizing this about myself, is that when especially when I'm feeling introverted, even if I'm out somewhere, I'll always go on my phone instead of literally listening or watching the music that's literally happening right in front of me.
Right.
Or
turning around to the next person and asking them a question, and like you're doing right now, Like you're good at interviews and sharing your own stuff and yeah, that can be done in a casual social setting, and that's what people used to do.
Right. That's what people are meant to do.
Yeah, I'm kind of enamored of these time periods where, like in France, at certain times, a lot of creative minds were coming together in cafes and, I don't know, drinking absinthe or whatever, but getting deeply into the philosophy of life as well as their creativity and bouncing ideas one off the other. There would be writers, there would be visual artists, there would be dancers, all different disciplines coming together and minds meeting. And I love it. I love it when that happens. And it's harder for it to happen with all these phones and screens around.
Or it's you get to the point where you see too much of the greatness that you belittle yourself. Because there's a constant battle of because social media is designed to push the greatest and the best of the best anyway. So if you
I don't know. There's a lot of really crappy stuff on there too.
Well, there's a lot of crappy stuff, but I mean, like when it comes to like certain circles of like music, they'll typically push the best music, or these insanely viral talent videos where you just see these impossibly talented people or these child prodigies that you can put like a double chord on and they'll be able to pick out every note, and you're just like, well, screw me then, who am I?
I used to do that to myself more, like even not so much on screens, but going out to see music, and I'd just be like, no matter what music I saw, even if it wasn't my cup of tea, I would see something in there that they were really hitting squarely on the head that I knew wasn't in my wheelhouse. And I used to be like, why should I even bother? Like, there are people doing this. But through time, I've come to see, the little footprint that I inhabit creatively is one that only I can inhabit. And I love that there are other people. Now I choose to get inspired by the things that wow me. And instead of putting myself down in comparison to them, I'm like, I want to absorb some of that.
I want to do that.
Yeah. And maybe not just like that, but put my own twist on it. And just, again, it's a challenge, seeing my limitation and then see where I could move into. I just love that challenge and movement.
And it's wild, but you don't even consider the stuff that you can do that they probably can't. Because you are unique, and only you can do the things the way you do them.
Yeah, each person is like that.
And you got to realize that the people that you're watching are not in your area either, or most of the times, especially if you're going to like concerts, they're probably not in your area. So they're not. You still have the opportunity to do what you do. And we kind of talked about this a little bit, that there's only opportunities. There's no like lack of opportunities or opportunities taken away. It's just different opportunities.
Yeah. Like instead of running away from the things that scare you, to move into the things that hold great allure to you. And so it's a positive movement instead of a negative one. Right.
I'm running out of questions to ask you.
Okay, do you want to listen to more music?
Yeah, we can listen to more music. My brain is being... I'm like an introvert, so this is where my brain is like, okay, it's been a lot of talking.
I have my 3x5 note cards too, different random bits of information. Although we've been at this for a little while now.
We have really been. One question I did want to ask is, what some of your special moments as a musician? Because you had sent that to me, and I'm like, oh, that's a really good question.
Yeah. Well, one of those was that moment in New York City on the street when with a wino dancing with Howard Cosell's wife. Another one was when Modern Icons was playing at the Fells Point Fun Fest, and it's just the three of us playing our little acoustic instruments on the stage for, like I said, thousands of people. But we just, I don't know, that day we were just really linking strong, and people really came up to the stage afterwards and wanted to talk to them. And one was this older cat. He looked like he had played jazz music for years, and he said that he had become very jaded by the whole music scene and kind of disgusted by it, and he had put his saxophone under his bed and left it there for 25 years.
Wow.
And he said, tonight I am going to take that out. And like that
That's awesome.
Just to create more music by the music that is being made.
That is truly, that's awesome. It's got to be such a confidence booster, too.
It really made me feel so happy that, like, we linked. Like, this man, we didn't have anything but the music in common, but we linked so profoundly. And that is such a good feel. I mean, that's part of the music, the magic of the music is just those profound links in a kind of universal place with others.
That is wild. You want to introduce your next piece?
Sure. Let's see, which one is it? It is Take Your Toll. This one, I wanted to include one that I had recorded with Lavacave. This is on I guess Lavacave only put out the one album, Rapture and Catastrophe.
And that's on Spotify? Or is it...
Yes, it is on Spotify. Lavacave is one word, and you can find that on Spotify. This song is called Take Your Toll.
And what is it? Well, what is it about?
Well, it's interesting how it's in some of my songs, I take a little piece of my character that I, like in all my self-reflection, I say, gosh, I'm doing this thing. And then I let it have a full life. Like there is a piece of me that can belittle myself and sacrifice myself to another person, especially when there is love and inspiration involved.
So you probably do that a lot to your kids. Your kids are... maybe like a small chunk of them is you.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah, there is that. But this is a piece I hope they don't inhabit. It's not a very healthy paradigm that this piece, I mean, Take Your Toll, this is inviting somebody to kind of destroy you, which is just something I can take a look at in myself. Like, I'm gonna be a beggar. I'm gonna belittle myself. I saw that aspect to myself. It's interesting. This is a song that a lot of very empowered women have often requested, and I'm thinking,
really?
Why would you request that song? Because it is somebody who is surrendering their power so profoundly. But sometimes there's a time and a place to do that.
That's interesting. Well, this is Take Your Toll by Lavacave.
lightning strikes, I say, please can I have some more? The flashing in your eyes, the thunder in my face. And I thought, oh, help me, mama, this is gonna hurt. Oh, help me, mama, this is gonna hurt. It may be now, it may be tomorrow, it may be when, oh, the shoe drops. It may be a slaughter, it may die of neglect. The air crackles with danger. I am gonna be wrecked, but I won't moan as you take your toll. I will only hurt and I will swallow it whole. 'Cause I can take my pain like a big girl. I can take my pain like a big girl. I can take my pain like a big girl. I can take my pain like a grown-up girl.
That was really cool.
Thank you.
That was a good one.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to add that on my Spotify for sure.
Oh,
actually.
sweet. Excellent. I tried to have 3 that were really different from one another.
Oh, they were, absolutely. The other ones, I guess you don't have on Spotify because they're more of just demos, right?
That's correct. Now, the first one I have on SoundCloud. On SoundCloud, I did just put up a bunch of my demos, and like I said, they're kind of a little pitchy in spots and a little twisty, but they give you a feeling kind of like that one, a feeling of what I'm getting at. I do have somewhere, in the future, I would love to do a solo album and really, like, these are all demos, but really give it each song what it deserves.
Mm-hmm.
Like each album, I've done so many albums in the past with various my own bands, but also other bands. On the ones that are my own, like, there's always something to cringe about. I would love to make an album of my own that I do not cringe at once, but I just glow and think, I did that. And with the help of my friends, like that, it's not just me playing a bunch of instruments I don't know how to play, that I get people who really know what they're doing and lay that down there. I've had the chance to record with a number of really good people, both recently and in the past. And it's something I really enjoy doing. I most recently recorded in Pittsburgh with this guy he's a star in Zambia. His name is Matthew Tembo, and he had heard some of the tracks I had done, a lot of string parts for another band I'm in right now, Matt Otis and the Sound.
Okay.
He's out of Bedford, and but we were recording an album in Pittsburgh, and that happens to be the same studio where Matthew Tembo of Zambia records. And he heard the string parts and wanted to write a song that incorporated similar string parts. So I got to record on those a couple months ago at Mount Royal Studios there. I've had a chance to record at Sigma Records in Philadelphia. I don't think it's open anymore, but it was like one of the big studios in Philadelphia or all across the States. I don't know. I love meeting people through doing recording with them. There was a guy from Pakistan named Yusuf Sethi who I did some recording with, and Declan O'Rourke out of Ireland has done. He tours all over the world, and I got to do a concert with him at Tellus.
Oh.
And so anyway, it's just a cool way to meet a lot of new people.
For sure.
And most recently, Hunter Root he released a new single, and he allowed me a place in it on his single. So
That's cool.
yeah.
Well, if you ever need help mixing or producing or a pianist, I'm always open.
Awesome. Good to know.
Well, this has been a wonderful time, a very long time, a very wonderful time. It's been wonderful to have you.
Thank you. It's been a joy to be here and kind of reminisce.
Yeah. Before we go, what is one thing that you know now that you wish you had known when you started?
Well, that it's not about the money that you make. I think when I first got into it and I first started, and before I was 25, people were like, oh my gosh, there's this new violinist in the area and she's really going places and she's going to be somebody. And I reached the age of 25, which, by the way, was the most difficult birthday for me, turning 25, because something in me was saying, I haven't made it. Now I'm nowhere really.
I'm old.
What am I doing? Yeah, if I haven't, I had the whole youth thing on my side before, but by 25, you should be pretty good if you're doing something. And I didn't have that boost of youth. And as I grew older, I was like, well, it would be nice to really do something, maybe get picked up by some band that I could make some real money, because I want to be able to send my kids to college and to have a home. Like those, I didn't care about the fame, but just like the money thing, that these things could happen, and because I didn't have another job. Well, I got on the other side of it. My kids, somehow, one way or another, we got them through college, all three of them, and I own a home, and I did that without, making any,
Rash
great
choices,
great strides in the music business or anything. So right now, I see it as just a way to continue joy in my life. Some of my most joyful moments in my entire life have been surrendering to the music with just really profound souls, and just knowing that's the thing to focus on.
Well, it's been an honor having you on, Robin.
Thank you so much, Corey.
All right, well, and with that said, I think that's a good spot to end it. Good 3-hour recording.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right.
Time flies.
I was looking at the time. I was like, oh my gosh, it's almost 7.
Oh, man.
Right, well, and this is, if you're just tuning in now, or have you been tuning in, this has been The Story with Corey Rosen and my special guest, Robin Chambers. Have a good night, everybody.